Bridging the gap on technology implementation in the classroom. We have 5 different types of adopters when it comes to implementing technology. We have the innovators, the early adopters, the early majority, the late majority, and the laggards. The innovators are always willing to experience the new ideas and the new technology. That's why they are the risk takers. They're ready to step into the unexpected, and they are expecting the unexpected. They're prepared for it, but they're the ones that are ready to experiment with the new technology before it moves on to the early adopters. The early adopters typically hold the leadership positions and the high social status, so they create a decrease in uncertainty about the innovation in the diffusion process. So they're there to support the innovators, as well as try to, first say, talk up the technology before it starts being implemented in the classroom, and to support those that are very skeptical about it. The early majority do not typically have leadership roles like the early adopters have, but their networks are still strong. So they're the social network. They're the ones reaching out to the other faculty and staff in the district to show what each technology has to offer and why they should use it. And their networks, they're very important. Their networks are very important. So not only will their networks reach the district and the faculty and staff in that district, but their PLCs will also reach worldwide, so that if somebody is trying to implement this in another district, they can state what the pros and cons are, what the strengths are, if there's any growth between when they were not using the new technology to when they are using the new technology. They're there to let everyone know the facts, and they're there to support the technology in its growth. Their innovation time takes a little bit longer than the innovators and the early adopters, but not as long as those in the late majority and the laggards. The late majority, they typically wait for most of their peers to adopt the innovation. They're usually skeptical about the innovation itself. So they're not 100% sure if they should be using it in their classroom, but they want to see how their peers use it before they start using it themselves, because they want to know what the hiccups will be and how to prepare for those hiccups. And then we have the laggards. They're more skeptical than the late majority. They want to make sure the innovation works before they pursue it. They have a longer innovation decision period, so they take a little bit longer to see, are the people before them that are using the technology seeing growth in their students? Is there growth in the district? Is it actually benefiting the students before they start using it in their classroom? If we're utilizing the innovators, the early adopters, and the early majority, our innovators would serve to demonstrate the growths and strengths that integrating technology has. So they would be the ones that are exploring it and finding what the benefits would be if educators were to use it in their classroom. The early adopters would serve as the communicators to show and share the benefits that technology integration has. So they would be there to state the facts to those around them. They would be there to support what the innovators have found, and they're there to share the truth as to what the benefits are. The early majority would be the trainers and the professional development leaders and share the success stories and evidence of the technology effectiveness. So the early majority would be the ones that would support the late majority and the laggards when they're a little hesitant and skeptical to start using this technology in their classroom. From Psalm 32:8, I will construct thee and teach thee in the way which thou shalt go. I will guide thee with mine eye. This relates to our innovators, our early adopters, our early majority, because they are there to support our late majority and our laggards in making sure that they are going to implement this technology to the best of their ability and let them know what the benefits are, how there's growth in the classroom, and what exactly they need in order to succeed if they're going to use this in the classroom. So they're there to teach the laggards and the late majority in a way that will benefit them, and they will be there to guide them. Specifically, the early majority, they will be there to guide the late majority and the laggards. That's why they would be the trainers and the professional development leaders. Utilizing our late majority and our laggards, They would be able to connect late majority and laggards with the earlier adopters so they can observe successful and effective implementation of technology. So the late majority and the laggards will be there to observe how the earlier adopters are using this technology and how exactly it would benefit them in the long run to use in their classroom. We would allow access to training and other coaching to assure they're being shown the best practices and the benefits of integrating the technology. Again, that's what the earlier adopters are there for. They're making sure that the late majority and the laggards have all the support that they need to ensure that they are utilizing this technology to the best of their abilities in their classrooms. And they'll ensure that they have representation on data teams so they can see the success in implementing the technology. So having a late majority or a laggard in on a data team to see how the data is actually changing with the implementation of the technology to show the success and how it is effectively working and how students are effectively learning. From 2 Corinthians 5:17, therefore if any man be in Christ, he is a new creature. Old things are passed away. Behold, all things are become new. So this means that from Christ's viewpoint, we are implementing new technologies in our classrooms. Although the old technologies that we were using are kind of phasing out, it's not as relevant anymore. Not necessarily relevant, but it's not used as often anymore. And now we are implementing these new technologies that we can see the growth and the strengths of each technology that is being used. Because we are moving on into a new century, we are moving on into a new generation of kids, so we need to find all the new technology that will relate to them and benefit all of the younger generations. To lead a system, our educators need to see the diversity that sits in the classroom, that sits in the seats of their classrooms. Every single student is different, so using different types of technologies helps meet students' needs better than it would be just using a pencil and paper for a worksheet. The educators and trainers need to stay humble. You can't have an educator or a trainer that is not being humble and they're bragging about how awesome they are with using this technology rather than staying humble and helping those that are not succeeding with the technology or are skeptical of using the technology in the classroom. They need to be able to effectively collaborate. Without effective collaboration, the data is a little skewed because somebody that's a late adopter or a laggard may not want to share their data with an early adopter because of not being able to effectively collaborate. They're taking over the room and they're not asking for everybody else's data. So there needs to be an effective collaboration. There needs to be a conversation happening between every type of adopter. They have to lead in a Christ-like mentality where they're there to help everybody else. It's not just one person takes over and that's it. It needs to be everybody is there, everybody has a say, everybody is in this conversation, not a single person is sitting out of the conversation. And then they need to foster a positive and compassionate learning environment, whether that be in a training where the training leader is the one that's fostering this positive and compassionate learning environment, where they're accepting of everybody that's sitting there, or if it's in a classroom. In a classroom, you can't effectively use technology if you're not being positive about it and you're not being compassionate as to what's going on with the student's laptop and the technology and just being rude about it. So it needs to have a positive and compassionate learning environment. Learning can't happen without this environment.